An unwelcome encounter. Elijah Hughes, a distinguished black executive with a record of transforming tech companies into industry leaders, had always been a figure of quiet authority and grace under pressure. His 13-year-old son, Noah, shared his father's love for learning, especially anything related to astronomy. Today, they were embarking on a special father-son trip to Denver, where Noah was scheduled to attend a young astronomer's workshop, a reward for his academic excellence. As they boarded Flight 2746 to Denver, Noah clutched his favorite book, The Wonders of the Solar System. He was visibly excited, his eyes wide with the promise of adventure, while Elijah, dressed in his immaculate gray suit, guided him down the first-class aisle with an air of composed assurance. They took their seats in the first-class cabin, Noah at the window and Elijah beside him. Noah immediately delved into his book, his fingers tracing the vibrant images of galaxies and planets, barely containing his enthusiasm. Across the aisle, Thomas Brody, a middle-aged businessman with a reputation in his circle for being both affluent and brash, took his seat. Brody's expression soured as he eyed Elijah and Noah settling in. He couldn't hide his disdain, his worldview tainted by prejudice and entitlement. Elijah, placing their carry-ons in the overhead compartment, caught Brody's gaze lingering with disapproval on Noah. Brody scoffed audibly, muttering to himself about children in first class. Elijah's posture stiffened momentarily, his years of navigating corporate racism and subtle undercuttings surfacing in a flash of irritation. However, he maintained his composure for Noah's sake, turning to reassure his son with a smile. "Dad, do you think we'll get a good view of the clouds?" Noah asked, his voice brimming with anticipation. "From above them, son. You'll see everything as if you were looking down from the heavens," Elijah responded, his tone soothing. As Noah excitedly pointed out facts about the moons of Jupiter, Brody's annoyance grew. He muttered, louder this time, "Kids these days don't even understand what they read." Elijah's jaw clenched at the comment. Noah, overhearing the remark, looked up from his book with a hurt expression. Elijah gently squeezed Noah's shoulder, signaling him to ignore the man's ignorance. "Noah, why don't you tell me more about Ganymede and Callisto?" Elijah encouraged, steering the conversation away from the negativity. As Noah launched into an explanation, Brody continued his sotto voce complaints, emboldened by Elijah's apparent non-confrontational stance. "These types shouldn't be in first class," Brody grumbled to another passenger, loud enough for Elijah and Noah to hear. Elijah turned his attention back to Brody, his calm demeanor belying the protective fierceness rising within him. "Excuse me, sir," Elijah began, his voice steady and authoritative. "My son has every right to be here, discussing his interests just as anyone else might discuss theirs. Your approval is not needed." Brody, caught off guard by Elijah's firm response, bristled but fell silent, his cheeks coloring with embarrassment. The flight attendant, noticing the tension, approached their row. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her tone professional yet concerned. "We're fine, thank you," Elijah replied, offering her a reassuring nod. As the plane taxied down the runway, Elijah turned back to Noah, encouraging him to focus on the exciting days ahead in Denver. Yet, as the aircraft lifted off, leaving the ground and Brody's comments far below, Elijah's thoughts were troubled. He knew this trip was meant to be a joyful educational experience for Noah, but the reality of ignorance and prejudice had cast a shadow over their start. This encounter was just the beginning of what would become a profound journey for both Elijah and Noah, one that would challenge them in unexpected ways and lead to surprising revelations about the strength of their bond and the impact of their presence in spaces they rightfully occupied. Soaring above challenges. As Flight 2746 climbed into the clear skies, Noah's initial excitement was slightly dimmed by the unpleasant encounter at the onset of their journey. However, Elijah, sensing his son's subdued mood, gently nudged him back towards the wonders that awaited both in the sky and on the ground in Denver. "Look, Noah," Elijah pointed out as they reached cruising altitude, "you can see the curvature of the Earth from here. It's just like how astronauts see it from space." Noah's eyes lit up again, his temporary discomfort forgotten as he pressed his face against the window, marveling at the vast expanse beneath them. The father and son engaged in animated discussion about stars, planets, and the limitless possibilities of space exploration. Elijah, with a PhD in astrophysics, was more than capable of fueling his son's burgeoning passion for the cosmos. Their conversation was a private bubble of shared interest and joy, momentarily insulated from the earlier negativity. But as the flight progressed, the cabin's close quarters made it impossible to completely avoid further interactions with Thomas Brody. Midway through the flight, as dinner was served, Brody, still simmering from being put in his place, overheard Noah excitedly discussing the possibility of interstellar travel. Unable to resist another jab, he leaned across the aisle and interrupted. "Interstellar travel, huh? You think we'll just hop between stars like catching a bus?" Brody sneered, his tone condescending. Elijah, who had been watching the clouds drift by, turned sharply towards Brody. This time, his response was firmer, his protectiveness over Noah turning his words steelier. "Mr. Brody, your skepticism is noted," Elijah said calmly but with an edge that made his point clear. "However, my son and I are discussing scientific possibilities and dreams. Dreams that I encourage you to respect, if not understand." Brody, taken aback by Elijah's quiet intensity, retreated once more, muttering under his breath but no longer daring to make his disdain as public. Noah, who had observed the exchange, felt a mix of emotions. He was proud of his dad for standing up for their right to dream and discuss freely but also anxious about causing trouble. "Dad, should we just stop talking about it?" Noah asked, his young voice tinged with concern. Elijah turned to his son, his expression softening. "Noah, never dim your enthusiasm for anyone's comfort. Your interest in science and space is wonderful, and it's something to be shared proudly. Let's just enjoy our journey, okay?" Reassured, Noah nodded, and they continued their discussion, albeit with a bit more discretion. Elijah was determined to ensure that his son's spirit was not dampened by close-mindedness. As the flight neared its end, Elijah contemplated the broader implications of their encounter. He realized this was more than just an uncomfortable moment, it was a reflection of the broader societal challenges that still pervaded even seemingly progressive spaces. Determined to turn this into a learning experience, Elijah decided to use this as an opportunity to teach Noah about resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. Upon landing in Denver, as they walked through the airport, Elijah wrapped an arm around Noah, proud not just of the young man he was raising but also of their ability to rise above negativity. The trip to Denver was meant to be educational in terms of astronomy, but it was clear it would also be a journey of personal growth and understanding. The challenges they faced would serve as a catalyst for deeper conversations about respect, dignity, and the strength found in holding one's ground, making the trip an unexpected but invaluable lesson in character building. Unexpected allies. Upon their arrival in Denver, Elijah and Noah made their way to the hotel where the young astronomer's workshop would be held. The hotel was a bustling hub of activity, with families and attendees from various parts of the country checking in. The atmosphere was charged with excitement, a stark contrast to the tension they had experienced on the flight. As they settled into their room, Elijah decided to address the incident from the flight directly. He wanted to ensure that Noah understood not just how to handle such situations, but also why they occurred and what could be learned from them. "Noah," Elijah began as they unpacked their luggage, "do you understand why I responded the way I did on the plane?" Noah nodded, placing his book on the nightstand. "Because we shouldn't let people make us feel bad about what we like or who we are," he responded, showing a depth of understanding that made Elijah proud. "Exactly," Elijah affirmed. "And it's also important to stand up for yourself in a respectful way, even when others are not respectful to you. It helps maintain your dignity and shows others that their behavior isn't acceptable." That evening, at the welcome reception for the workshop, Noah mingled with other young enthusiasts, his confidence buoyed by the support from his father. Meanwhile, Elijah found himself in conversation with other parents who had overheard about the flight incident through the chatter among attendees. One of the parents, a woman named Sarah, whose daughter was also attending the workshop, expressed her support. "I heard about what happened on your flight," she said, her tone sympathetic. "It's admirable how you handled it. It sets a great example for all our kids here." Grateful for the solidarity, Elijah thanked her, feeling a sense of community building already. As more parents joined the conversation, it became clear that many shared similar experiences and concerns. The discussion naturally shifted towards how they could foster a more inclusive and supportive environment not just within their immediate communities but also in broader societal interactions. Inspired by the supportive network forming among the parents, Elijah proposed an informal session later in the week for parents and guardians. The focus would be on sharing strategies for empowering their children to face and challenge social biases and prejudices, whether in schools, playgrounds, or even in airplanes. The proposal was met with enthusiastic approval. Sarah, who had experience in community organizing, offered to help coordinate the session. Together, they planned to bring in a local expert on child psychology and inclusivity to provide insights and practical advice. The remainder of the reception went smoothly, with Noah returning to his father full of stories about the new friends he had made and the projects they were excited to embark on. Seeing his son so animated and accepted in this environment bolstered Elijah's resolve to ensure that this trip was about more than just confronting bigotry, it was about building lasting resilience and positivity. Throughout the next few days, as the workshop sessions took place, Noah thrived in the stimulating environment, his natural curiosity and intelligence shining through. Elijah attended the parent sessions, where deep and sometimes difficult conversations forged a sense of purpose and camaraderie among the group. The informal session for parents became a pivotal moment of the trip, creating a blueprint for ongoing support and advocacy that many vowed to continue once they returned home. The experts' insights were invaluable, providing the parents with tools to help their children navigate and transform the challenging situations they might encounter into opportunities for growth and leadership. As the workshop week drew to a close, Elijah and Noah felt enriched not just by the knowledge gained but by the relationships formed. They left Denver with renewed spirits and a deepened bond, ready to face future challenges with a new perspective and a network of allies who shared their values and hopes for a more understanding world. A crucial confrontation. The workshop in Denver concluded on a high note, with young minds enriched and parental bonds strengthened. However, the return journey loomed over Elijah and Noah with the memory of their previous flight's unpleasant encounter. Elijah, ever the strategist, prepared Noah for the possibility of facing similar challenges, emphasizing the importance of maintaining their dignity regardless of others' behaviors. On the day of their departure, Elijah and Noah arrived at the airport with time to spare, their spirits buoyed by the successful completion of the workshop but cautious about the flight back to their hometown. As they navigated through the security checks and made their way to the gate, Elijah silently hoped for a smooth journey. While waiting at their departure gate, Elijah noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Thomas Brody, the same man who had caused distress on their earlier flight. Brody was speaking animatedly on his phone, seemingly oblivious to the people around him, including Elijah and Noah. Elijah took this as an opportunity to teach Noah another valuable lesson, this time in forgiveness and the power of second chances. He nudged Noah and nodded subtly towards Brody. "Noah, see that man over there? That's Mr. Brody from our previous flight. What do you think we should do if he recognizes us or if he speaks to us again?" Noah looked at his father, then at Brody, his face thoughtful. "Maybe we can show him that we're not upset. That we're still happy even after what happened." "That's a good approach," Elijah affirmed, proud of his son's maturity. "We can demonstrate that we hold no grudges. And who knows? Maybe Mr. Brody has had some time to think about that day and might see things differently now." As they boarded the plane, Elijah and Noah found themselves once again in close proximity to Brody. This time, however, the circumstances unfolded differently. As they took their seats, Brody, who had just ended his phone call, looked up and locked eyes with Elijah. There was a moment of recognition, and surprisingly, Brody's face softened. He cleared his throat and, as Elijah and Noah settled in, leaned over. "Mr. Hughes, isn't it? I wanted to apologize for what happened on our last flight together. I've had some time to think about my actions, and I'm truly sorry for any distress I caused you and your son," Brody said, his tone sincere. Elijah was taken aback by the apology but responded graciously. "Thank you, Mr. Brody. I appreciate your words. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption." The rest of the flight passed without incident, with Brody keeping to himself, occasionally glancing towards Elijah and Noah with a reflective, almost penitent look on his face. Upon landing, Elijah and Noah discussed the unexpected apology, analyzing the situation and its implications for their understanding of human behavior. "Dad, why do you think he changed his mind?" Noah asked, genuinely curious. "People sometimes act out of fear or misunderstanding, Noah. But with time and reflection, many come to realize the impact of their actions. It seems Mr. Brody took that time and made that realization. It's a reminder that people can change, and it's important to give them the opportunity to do so," Elijah explained. This encounter marked a significant moment for Noah, witnessing firsthand the capacity for growth and change within individuals. It also reinforced Elijah's teachings about empathy and the strength inherent in forgiveness. As they collected their luggage and left the airport, Elijah and Noah felt a renewed sense of hope, not just for their own ability to effect change, but for the broader capacity of society to evolve towards greater understanding and mutual respect. This experience, though rooted in conflict, had culminated in a profound lesson in human dynamics, one that would stay with them for years to come. Reflections and resolutions. Back home, the impact of their experiences, both at the Denver workshop and during their travels, continued to resonate with Elijah and Noah. The journey had offered far more than an academic pursuit, it had morphed into a profound lesson in human interaction, forgiveness, and the potential for personal change. Inspired by these events, Elijah decided that their story was worth sharing with a wider audience, not just as a testament to their personal growth but as a beacon for community understanding and reconciliation. Elijah reached out to a local community center that often held talks and seminars on social issues, proposing a session titled "Navigating Conflict with Grace, A Personal Journey." The proposal was eagerly accepted, and Elijah began to prepare, pulling together notes and reflecting deeply on the right messages to convey. As the date of the talk approached, Noah watched his father prepare and was moved by the depth of thought Elijah put into every detail. He asked if he could be a part of the presentation, suggesting that sharing his perspective as a young person might add a valuable dimension to the discussion. Elijah agreed, proud of Noah's initiative and eager to include his insights. The evening of the talk, the community center was filled with locals, educators, and even some law enforcement officials, many of whom were eager to understand more about effective conflict resolution and the power of empathy. Elijah and Noah took the stage, welcomed by a warm round of applause. Elijah began by recounting their experiences, carefully describing the initial flight encounter with Thomas Brody, the tension, and the unexpected resolution on their return trip. He talked about the importance of maintaining dignity in the face of adversity and the powerful impact of setting an example of strength and composure. Noah then took over, sharing his initial feelings of helplessness when confronted with hostility, and how his father's example had taught him to hold on to his values and respond with resilience rather than bitterness. He discussed how the experience had deepened his understanding of people's capacity for change and stressed the importance of young people being involved in discussions about social justice and community dynamics. The audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement and others visibly moved by the honesty and maturity of the presentation. During the Q&A session, questions poured in, ranging from how to foster similar understanding in schools, to ways law enforcement and communities could work together more harmoniously. One particularly poignant moment came when a local schoolteacher asked Noah how he felt young people could contribute to a more empathetic society. Noah responded thoughtfully, suggesting that schools could create safe spaces for students to express their concerns and experiences with bias, and organize regular workshops that promote cultural competency and understanding. As the session wrapped up, attendees came forward to speak personally with Elijah and Noah, thanking them for their openness and congratulating Noah on his courage and insight. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many expressing a renewed commitment to fostering environments of understanding and respect in their own circles. Motivated by the success of the talk, Elijah and Noah decided to continue their engagement with the community. They planned to host a series of follow-up workshops at the community center, aiming to explore other aspects of social interaction, such as mediation and reconciliation processes. That night, as they drove home, the conversation between father and son was reflective and hopeful. They discussed plans for furthering their advocacy and education efforts, both feeling that they had not only navigated a personal challenge but had turned it into an opportunity to influence their community positively. This ongoing commitment marked a new chapter in their lives, one where they would use their experiences to foster dialogue and understanding in a world that often seemed polarized and unforgiving. Through their actions and words, they hoped to show that even from moments of discomfort and conflict, there could emerge lessons and growth that extend far beyond the individuals directly involved. Expanding horizons. In the months following their community talk, Elijah and Noah became local advocates for dialogue and understanding in dealing with social conflicts. Their initial presentation had sparked a series of engagements, each building on the momentum of the last, drawing larger audiences and involving a broader segment of the community. Encouraged by this success, they began to think about how they could leverage their experiences to affect change on a larger scale. Elijah, with his background in business and leadership, used his contacts to initiate a partnership with the local school district and the police department to implement a program designed to foster interactions between students, educators, and law enforcement. The program, named Bridges of Understanding, aimed to provide workshops, joint community service projects, and discussion forums where students and police officers could meet in non-confrontational settings to learn from each other and build mutual respect. Noah, inspired by the positive responses he had received from his peers, started a student club at his high school dedicated to social justice issues. The club, which he named Voices of Tomorrow, quickly gained traction among students interested in topics ranging from civil rights to environmental justice. The club organized monthly events, including guest lectures, documentary screenings, and community cleanup days, which encouraged students to think globally but act locally. As these initiatives grew, so did media interest. Elijah and Noah were invited to speak on local television, and their story was featured in several regional publications. This exposure brought new opportunities, including an invitation to participate in a statewide conference on community and police relations. It was a significant recognition of their efforts and a chance to share their insights with a wider audience. At the conference, held in the state capitol, Elijah and Noah presented a session on the importance of personal experiences in shaping public perceptions and policies. They discussed their own story in detail, highlighting how a negative encounter had catalyzed a series of positive changes. They also shared the successes of the Bridges of Understanding program and the Voices of Tomorrow club, offering them as models that could be replicated in other communities. Their presentation was met with enthusiastic feedback. Many attendees, including community leaders, educators, and law enforcement officials, expressed interest in implementing similar programs. Inspired by this response, Elijah proposed the creation of a network, a coalition of communities committed to improving relations through openness and educational initiatives. In the months that followed, Elijah worked to turn this idea into reality. He formed a non-profit organization, the Hughes Foundation for Community Dialogue, which offered resources, training, and support to communities interested in starting their own programs. The foundation also hosted an annual forum where members could share strategies, challenges, and successes. Meanwhile, Noah continued to lead his club at school, which had grown to include over 100 members. The club's impact was significant, influencing school policies on inclusivity and diversity and inspiring similar clubs in neighboring schools. Noah's leadership had not only made him a role model to his peers but had also deepened his own understanding of the power of youth activism. As father and son sat together in their living room, planning for the next annual forum, they reflected on the journey that had started with a fraught airplane ride. What had begun as a personal challenge had grown into a movement that was making tangible changes in communities across the state. Elijah looked at Noah, who had grown not just in age but in wisdom and confidence, and felt an immense pride in what they had achieved together. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he said, his voice filled with emotion. "We really have, Dad," Noah replied, smiling. "And we're just getting started." Their shared journey had taught them about the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of empathy. Together, they had turned a moment of conflict into a lifetime of advocacy, proving that even small actions could lead to substantial changes.